Friday dinner turned into a tribunal. The roast chicken sat cold on my plate as my father, Douglas, wiped his mouth with a napkin. He looked at me with that cold, corporate stare he usually saved for underperforming employees. "You're grounded from school, Madison," Dad said evenly, "until you apologize to your brother." I looked across the table. Ethan was grinning. It wasn't a happy smile, it was the look of someone who had won a prize he didn't earn. He kicked my shin under the table, knowing I wouldn't react. My mother, Janet, fiddled with her wine glass. Her voice quivered with her usual blend of guilt and blatant favoritism. "Family comes first, Madison. Just say the words." I looked at them. I looked at the brother who tormented me and the parents who enabled him. Something inside me finally snapped. It wasn't a loud snap. It was quiet. I set my fork down. I was calm. "All right," I said. Dad nodded, satisfied. He thought I was agreeing. He thought he had broken me. He had no idea. That word didn't mean I was sorry. It meant goodbye. Before we dive in, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment below telling me, where in the world are you watching from? In the Cole household, the rules of physics didn't apply. In the real world, gravity affects everyone the same way. But in our house, my brother Ethan floated and I carried the weight of the world. Ethan was the golden boy. It was a title he didn't earn, but one he was born into. He was 2 years younger than me, with Dad's jawline and Mom's eyes. From the moment he could walk, he could do no wrong. I remember when I was 10 and he was 8. We were playing in the living room. Dad had a collection of vintage model cars on the shelf. We weren't allowed to touch them. I was reading a book on the sofa, quiet as a mouse. Ethan was running around, throwing a baseball up and down. I told him to stop. "Dad will get mad," I said. "You're not the boss of me, Madison," he sneered. He threw the ball too hard. It smashed into the shelf. A red 1967 Mustang model shattered on the floor. The glass case cracked. When Dad came home, the air turned icy. He looked at the broken glass. He looked at the ruined car, then he looked at us. Ethan started crying immediately, crocodile tears. "Madison pushed me," he wailed. "She pushed me and I bumped into it." It was a lie. A clumsy, obvious lie. I was on the other side of the room, but Dad didn't look for logic. He looked for a reason to comfort his son. "Madison," Dad said, his voice low and dangerous. "Why can't you be more careful?" "I didn't touch it," I protested. "I was reading." "Don't lie to me," Dad snapped. "Ethan is crying. Look at him. You upset your brother." I was grounded for 2 weeks. Ethan got ice cream because he was traumatized by the loud noise of the glass breaking. That was the pattern of my life. As we got older, it got worse. Ethan wasn't just clumsy, he was mean. He realized early on that he had a get-out-of-jail-free card. He could fail a test, and Mom would blame the teacher for being too strict. He could skip practice, and Dad would say Ethan needed a mental health day. Meanwhile, I had to be perfect just to be noticed. I became the shadow. That's what it felt like. I was the dark spot in the corner of their bright, shiny life. I kept my grades perfect. Straight A's, not A-minuses. A's, I joined the debate team. I ran track. I volunteered at the library. I did everything right because I thought, deep down, that if I was perfect enough, they would finally look at me the way they looked at him. I was wrong. One evening during my junior year, I came home with my report card. I had a 4 GPA. I was ranked 3rd in my entire class. I walked into the kitchen, feeling a rare spark of pride. "Mom, Dad," I said. "Look," I put the report card on the island counter. Mom was stirring sauce on the stove. She glanced at it for half a second. "That's nice, honey. Put it in the drawer." "It's a 4, I said, needing them to hear it. "I'm 3rd in the class." "We know you're smart, Madison," Dad said, not looking up from his tablet. "But keep your voice down. Ethan is upset." "Why?" I asked. "The coach benched him," Dad said, shaking his head. "Unbelievable. The man doesn't know talent when he sees it. Ethan is the best quarterback on that JV team. I'm going to call the school board tomorrow." They spent the next hour discussing how to get the coach fired. They talked about Ethan's potential and his athletic genius. My report card sat on the counter, untouched, until a drop of spaghetti sauce splattered on it. I wiped it off with a paper towel, took it to my room, and put it in a box under my bed. That box was full of things they didn't care about. My track medals, my debate trophies, my poetry awards. It was a box of evidence that I existed. I learned to be quiet. I learned to fix things. When Ethan forgot to take the trash out, I did it so Mom wouldn't yell. When Ethan needed money for movies, Dad gave him $20. When I needed money for a field trip, Dad gave me a lecture on fiscal responsibility. "You need to learn the value of $1, Madison," he would say. So I got a job. I worked weekends at a diner. I saved every penny. I bought my own car, a beat-up Honda, when I turned 17. Dad didn't co-sign. He didn't help. "It builds character," he told me. But when Ethan turned 16, a brand new Jeep appeared in the driveway with a red bow on it. "We want him to be safe," Mom explained, seeing the look on my face. "He's a boy. Boys are reckless, he needs a sturdy car." "I drive a tin can," I said. "Stop being jealous," she sighed. "It's ugly, Madison, be happy for your brother." I wasn't jealous of the car, I was jealous of the love. I realized then that I wasn't a daughter to them. I was an employee, I was a roommate, I was an appliance that was expected to work without maintenance. Ethan was the sun. They revolved around him, warmed by his light, blinded by his glare. And me, I was just the shadow cast against the wall, cold and flat and easy to ignore. But shadows have a way of growing when the sun starts to set. And the sun was about to set on the Cole family, though they didn't know it yet. Senior year was supposed to be my victory lap. I had my sights set on Georgetown. I had my counselor, Mrs. Brooks, who actually believed in me. I had my best friend, Sienna. And I had Ethan, a sophomore terrorizing the hallways. Ethan wasn't just a prankster anymore. He was a bully. He was big for his age, fueled by Dad's protein shakes and the knowledge that consequences were for other people. Teachers walked on eggshells around him. They knew Dad was on the PTA. They knew Mom called the superintendent if Ethan got a detention. He walked through the school like he owned it, shoving kids into lockers, snapping bra straps, cheating on tests openly. I tried to stay away from him. We existed in different worlds at school. I was in the AP wing, he was usually loitering near the gym, but on a rainy Tuesday in November, our worlds collided. I was walking to my car after debate practice. The parking lot was mostly empty, gray and slick with rain. I heard shouting coming from behind the equipment shed. My stomach tightened. I knew that voice. I walked around the corner of the shed. Ethan had a freshman boy pinned against the brick wall. The kid was small, maybe 14, clutching a trumpet case. He looked terrified. Ethan was red-faced, screaming, "You think that's funny? You think you can laugh at me?" "I wasn't laughing," the kid stammered. "I was just talking to my friend." "Liar," Ethan shouted. Then Ethan pulled his fist back. It happened in slow motion. Ethan punched the kid in the stomach. The boy doubled over, dropping his trumpet case. He gasped for air, falling to the wet pavement. "Ethan," I screamed. He didn't stop. He kicked the boy in the ribs. "Get up, don't be a wuss," I didn't think. I didn't weigh the pros and cons. My hand went to my pocket and pulled out my phone. I hit the camera button. I recorded him kicking the boy again. I recorded him grabbing the boy's backpack and dumping the contents into a puddle. I recorded the hateful, ugly look on my brother's face. "Hey," I yelled, stepping closer, phone raised. "I'm recording you, Ethan, stop." Ethan spun around. His eyes were wild. When he saw the phone, his face changed from rage to panic. "Delete that," he growled. He stepped toward me. "Get away from him," I said, my voice shaking but loud. "The security guard is coming." I saw him. It was a bluff, but it worked. Ethan looked at the boy on the ground, then at me. He spat on the pavement. "You're dead, Madison, you're actually dead." He stormed off toward his Jeep. I helped the freshman up. He was crying, clutching his side. "Are you okay?" I asked. "Please don't tell anyone," he whispered. "He'll kill me." "No," I said firmly. "He won't." I took the boy to the nurse. Then I walked straight to the principal's office. 10 minutes later, I was sitting in a leather chair across from Principal Davis. I played the video. Principal Davis watched it in silence. He flinched when Ethan kicked the boy. When it ended, he took off his glasses and rubbed his eyes. "This is serious assault, Madison," he said. "We have a zero-tolerance policy." "I know," I said. "I have to call your parents." "I know." I waited in the outer office while he made the call. I stared at a poster on the wall that said integrity is doing the right thing when no one is looking. My parents arrived 20 minutes later. Mom looked frantic. Dad looked furious. Ethan was with them, looking sulky and victimized. They didn't look at me. They marched straight into the principal's office. I could hear the shouting through the closed door. He was provoked. That was Dad. My son is not a violent criminal. That was Mom. Madison has always been jealous of him. She probably edited that video. Ethan's voice, high and whining. The door opened. Principal Davis looked exhausted. "Mr. and Mrs. Cole, the video is clear. Ethan is suspended for 2 weeks. He is lucky we aren't involving the police. The other boys' parents are very upset." Dad walked out of the office. He finally looked at me. His eyes were cold, hard stones. "Get in the car," he said. "I have my own car," I said. "Get in the car." I followed them. Ethan sat in the front seat, sniffling. Mom rubbed his shoulder. "It's okay, baby," she cooed. "We'll fix this." "That principal is biased." "Madison set me up," Ethan sobbed. "She's been attacking me all week. She hates me." Dad gripped the steering wheel so hard his knuckles turned white. He looked at me in the rearview mirror. "You," he said, his voice shaking with suppressed rage. "You betrayed your own brother." He was beating up a freshman, I said calmly. He could have seriously hurt him. You don't air family business in public, Dad shouted. You protect family, you don't hand over evidence to the enemy. The principal isn't the enemy, Dad. Ethan was wrong. Shut up. Mom turned around and screamed at me. Just shut up, Madison, you've ruined everything. Are you happy now? Are you happy you humiliated us? I looked out the window at the passing trees. The rain was coming down harder now. I wasn't happy, but for the first time I wasn't afraid of the truth. I didn't ruin anything, I said quietly. Ethan did. The rest of the ride was silent, but it wasn't a peaceful silence. It was the silence before a bomb goes off. The house felt different when we walked in. Usually it was just a house, walls, roof, furniture. Tonight, it felt like a courtroom where the verdict had already been decided, and I was the defendant with no lawyer. We didn't even take our coats off. Dad marched into the living room and pointed to the sofa. Sit, he commanded. I sat, I kept my back straight. I refused to slouch. I refused to cry. Ethan threw himself onto the loveseat, burying his face in a cushion. Mom sat next to him, stroking his hair like he was a wounded soldier returning from war, not a bully who had just assaulted a child. Dad paced back and forth in front of the fireplace. He loosened his tie. He looked like a CEO dealing with a hostile takeover. Here is the situation, Dad began, his voice dangerously even. The school board is going to meet on Monday. If that suspension sticks, it goes on Ethan's permanent record. It affects his college prospects. It affects his sports eligibility. It affects this family's reputation. He stopped and pointed a finger at me. You created this mess, Madison. You are going to fix it. Me, I asked. I didn't punch anyone. You recorded it, Mom snapped. If you hadn't recorded it, it would be his word against that kid's. We could have handled it. Handled it how? I asked. By lying, by intimidating the kid, by protecting your brother, Dad roared. The room went quiet. Dad took a deep breath, composing himself. He switched tactics. He stopped yelling and started negotiating. This was his business mode. We have a plan, Dad said. I spoke to the vice principal on the way out. He's a friend of mine. He says if there is context for the video, they might reduce the punishment. I narrowed my eyes. What kind of context? Tomorrow morning, Dad said, we are going to write a statement. You are going to sign it. You will say that you and Ethan were arguing earlier, and that you saw him pushing the boy away in self-defense, and that you only recorded the end of the fight out of anger. My jaw dropped. You want me to lie. You want me to perjure myself to the school board. It's not lying, Mom said. It's helping family. And, Dad continued, you will go to the school assembly on Monday. You will publicly apologize to Ethan for overreacting and spreading a misleading video. An apology? I laughed. It was a dry, humorless sound. You want me to apologize to the abuser? Ethan looked up from the cushion. He had a smirk on his face. He knew he had won. He knew they would burn me to keep him warm. If you do this, Mom said, her voice softening into that fake sweetness I hated, we can put this all behind us. We can be a happy family again. Please, Madison, be the bigger person. You're the oldest. I looked at them. I looked at Mom, weak and enabling. I looked at Dad, arrogant and controlling. I looked at Ethan, cruel and spoiled. They didn't care about right or wrong. They didn't care about the boy in the nurse's office. They didn't care about me. They only cared about the image of the perfect Cole family. If I signed that paper, I would be destroying my own integrity. I would be admitting that I was a liar. I would be the villain in their story forever, but if I refused, I knew what would happen. I knew the consequences would be nuclear. I took a breath. The air in the room felt stale. No, I said. The word hung in the air. Dad stopped pacing. He froze. Excuse me. No, I said again, louder this time. I won't lie. I won't apologize. Ethan is guilty. He hurt that kid. He needs to face the consequences. Dad's face turned a shade of purple I had never seen before. He walked over to me, looming over the sofa. You listen to me, he hissed. I pay for the roof over your head. I pay for the food in your stomach. I pay for that car you drive. You live in my world, you follow my rules. Not when your rules are wrong, I said. If you don't do this, Dad said, you are grounded, indefinitely. No phone, no car. No friends, and he paused for effect. You don't go back to school. My heart skipped a beat. You can't stop me from going to school. I'm a senior, I have perfect attendance. I can, Dad said. I'll pull you out. I'll say we're homeschooling you for behavioral issues. I'll refuse to pay the tuition for the rest of the semester. Try getting into Georgetown with an incomplete on your transcript. It was a checkmate, or so he thought. He was holding my future hostage to save Ethan's reputation. Mom looked at me, eyes pleading. Just apologize, Madison, don't be stubborn. I stood up. My legs were shaking, but my voice was steady. If I apologize, I said, I lose myself, I won't do it. Dad pointed to the stairs. Then get out of my sight, you're done, no school on Monday, no school until you fix this. Fine, I said. I walked toward the stairs. And give me your phone, Dad yelled after me. I didn't turn around. I didn't hand it over. I walked up the stairs, went into my room, and locked the door. I sat on my bed in the dark. My hands were trembling. They thought they had trapped me. They thought that by taking away school, they were taking away my power. But they had made a mistake. They had pushed me past the point of fear. I wasn't going to apologize. And I wasn't going to stay. I didn't cry. Crying was a luxury I couldn't afford. I needed to think. I sat on the floor of my room, my back against the door. It was 8 p.m. on a Friday. The house was quiet downstairs. They were probably celebrating. They probably thought I would crack by morning. I looked around my room. It was the only place I had ever felt safe, and now even this felt like a prison cell. I had to leave, not just for the night, forever. But you can't just walk out into the world with nothing. I needed a plan. I needed leverage. I pulled my suitcases out from under the bed. I opened them quietly. First, the essentials. I didn't pack my favorite sweaters or my cute shoes. I packed survival gear. Jeans, t-shirts, a warm coat, then the real essentials. I went to my desk. I unlocked the drawer where I kept my life, my birth certificate, my social security card, my passport. I had stolen them from Dad's safe 2 years ago, just in case. I knew even then, subconsciously, that this day would come. I took the box of medals from under the bed. I took my transcripts. I took the hard drive with all my debate videos and essays. My phone buzzed. It was Caroline Brooks, my guidance counselor. She shouldn't be calling students on a Friday night, but Caroline was different. She knew my family. She knew the truth. I answered in a whisper. Hello, Madison, Caroline's voice was urgent. I heard what happened. Principal Davis called me. He's worried your father is actually going to pull you out. He is, I said. He gave me an ultimatum. Lie for Ethan or no school. Okay, listen to me, Caroline said. Her voice shifted from worried to professional. We have a window. There is an emergency scholarship fund at Georgetown Prep, the boarding school in D.C. It's for high-merit students in distressed circumstances. The deadline is Monday at 8 a.m. Georgetown Prep, I whispered. That's the best school in the district. I know, she said. I've already sent your transcripts unofficially. But you need to write the essays. Tonight, you need to explain why you are leaving home. You need to tell them everything, Madison. Don't sugarcoat it. Can you do that? Yes, I said. A spark of hope lit up in my chest. If you get in, Caroline continued, it's a full ride. Tuition, boarding, food, you would live on campus, you would be out of that house. What about my parents? I asked. They have to sign the permission forms. How old are you, Madison? 17. I turn 18 in 3 months. In D.C., under Statute 202 regarding independent enrollment for at-risk minors with full academic funding, if you can prove educational neglect, which pulling you out of school to cover up an assault definitely is, you can self-sign. It's a legal loophole, but Ryan Mercer can make it stick. Who is Ryan Mercer? He's the attorney for the school. I've already called him. He's waiting for your application. I closed my eyes. Caroline Brooks was an angel. Thank you, I choked out. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. Write the essays. Get out of there. I hung up. I opened my laptop. I didn't turn on the lights in my room. I worked by the glow of the screen. The prompt was simple. Describe a challenge you have overcome and how it shaped you. I started typing. I didn't write the polite, sanitized version I would have written a week ago. I wrote the raw, bloody truth. I wrote about the broken model car. I wrote about the golden boy. I wrote about the silence at the dinner table. I wrote about the blackmail. I wrote about being the shadow. I wrote, I am not leaving because I am weak. I am leaving because my integrity is the only thing I own, and I refuse to sell it for my brother's comfort. The words poured out of me. It was like bleeding onto the keyboard. At 3:04 a.m. I finished. I proofread it once. It was brutal. It was perfect. I clicked submit. The screen flashed, application received. Decision pending. 48 hours. I closed the laptop. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I spent the rest of the weekend like a ghost. I didn't leave my room on Saturday. I didn't eat. I drank water from the bathroom tap. Dad came to the door once. Are you ready to apologize? He yelled through the wood. No, I said. Then starve, he muttered. Sunday passed in a blur of anxiety. I packed the rest of my things. I waited. I knew that if this didn't work, I was homeless. I had $2,000 in my savings account from the diner. It wouldn't last long, but I also knew I couldn't stay. The bridge was burned. I had lit the match when I said no. Monday morning came. The sun rose, pale and cold. I was sitting on my bed, fully dressed, my suitcases by the door. My phone pinged. An email notification. Subject: Admission decision, Georgetown Preparatory Academy. My hands shook so badly I dropped the phone. I picked it up. I took a deep breath. I opened the email. "Dear Miss Cole, we are pleased to inform you." I didn't read the rest. I saw the words full merit award and housing assigned. I let out a breath I had been holding for 17 years. I stood up. I grabbed my bags. It was time to face them. Not as a daughter, but as a stranger who happened to live in their house. I unlocked my door and walked out into the hallway. The house was waking up. I could smell coffee. I dragged my suitcases to the top of the stairs. The wheels rumbled on the floorboards. Downstairs, the kitchen went silent. I took the first step down. Freedom wasn't free, I knew that, but I was finally ready to pay the price. Monday morning arrived with a silence that felt heavy and suffocating. The sun was barely up, casting long, gray shadows across the hallway floor. I stood at the top of the stairs, my hand gripping the handle of my suitcase. My heart was hammering against my ribs. This was it. There was no turning back. I had spent the last 48 hours in my room, surviving on tap water and sheer will. I felt lightheaded, but my mind was razor-sharp. I looked at my phone one last time. The email from Georgetown Preparatory Academy was still there. It wasn't a dream. Full merit award, housing assigned, immediate start. I took a deep breath, inhaling the stale air of the house I had lived in for 17 years. It didn't smell like home anymore. It smelled like a trap I was about to spring. I began to descend the stairs. The wheels of my suitcase thumped against each step. Thump, thump, thump. It was a heavy, deliberate sound like a drumbeat announcing war. I reached the bottom of the stairs and turned toward the kitchen. They were all there. It was a scene of perfect domestic normalcy, which made it even more sickening. Dad was sitting at the head of the table, reading the news on his tablet. He was wearing his crisp white shirt, ready for the office. He looked powerful, unbothered. Mom was at the stove, flipping pancakes. The smell of butter and syrup filled the air, a smell that used to make me feel safe, but now just made me feel nauseous. Ethan was sitting opposite Dad, shoveling food into his mouth. He looked rested, he looked happy. He wasn't at school, serving his suspension. He was here, being pampered. When I rolled my suitcase into the kitchen, the noise stopped them. The silence that fell over the room was instant. Mom froze with the spatula in midair. Ethan stopped chewing, a piece of pancake hanging from his lip. Dad slowly lowered his tablet, his eyes narrowing behind his reading glasses. They looked at the suitcase. Then they looked at me. "Going somewhere?" Dad asked. His voice was dry, mocking. He didn't think I was actually leaving. He thought this was a stunt. He thought I was running away to a friend's house for a few hours to seek attention. "Yes," I said. My voice was quiet but steady. "I am." "Sit down, Madison," Mom said, her voice tight. "Don't be dramatic. Put the bag away. We have to get ready for the meeting at the school." "I'm not going to the meeting," I said. "We discussed this," Dad said, his voice dropping an octave. "You are going, you are apologizing, and then you are coming home." "No," I said. I reached into my back pocket and pulled out the printout of the email. I had printed it on my portable printer in my room the night before. The paper was warm in my hand. I walked over to the table and placed the paper directly on top of Dad's tablet. "Read it," I said. Dad looked at the paper. He looked at me with disdain, then looked down. I watched his eyes scan the page. I saw the exact moment the words registered. His eyebrows knitted together. His mouth opened slightly. The color drained from his face, leaving it a pale, pasty gray. "What is this?" he whispered. "Georgetown Prep," I said. "They accepted me, full scholarship, tuition, room, board, books, everything." Ethan laughed. "Yeah, right. You can't just get into Georgetown Prep over a weekend. That place is for geniuses." "Shut up, Ethan," Dad snapped. He didn't look away from the paper. He read it again, his eyes darting back and forth. "This says, full residency," Dad said. "Housing assigned." "I'm moving onto campus," I said. "Today." Mom turned off the stove. She walked over, wiping her hands on her apron. She snatched the paper from under Dad's hand. She read it quickly, her lips moving silently. She gasped. Her hand flew to her mouth. "Madison, you can't. This is in DC. It's 40 minutes away. You can't live there." "I can," I said. "And I will." Dad stood up. The chair scraped loudly against the floor. He loomed over me, trying to use his height to intimidate me. It had worked for years. It didn't work today. "We never signed permission for this," Dad said. His voice was shaking with rage. "You are a minor. You are 17. You cannot enroll in a boarding school without parental consent. I will call them right now and tell them this is a mistake." He reached for his phone. "You don't have to sign," I said. He stopped. "Excuse me. I did my research, Dad," I said. I felt a surge of power. It was the power of knowledge. DC Statute, Section 202. Dad stared at me blankly. "What are you talking about?" "It's a law regarding independent enrollment for at-risk minors," I explained. I kept my sentences short. I wanted him to understand every word. If a student has full academic funding, which I do, and is in a situation of educational neglect or distress, which I am, they can self-sign. Educational neglect, Dad shouted. He slammed his hand on the granite counter. The noise made Mom jump. We give you everything. We send you to the best public school in the county. We feed you. We clothe you. You suspended my education, I said calmly. You told me on Friday that I wasn't allowed to go to school unless I lied to the school board. That is coercion. That is neglect. You held my education hostage to protect Ethan. We were protecting the family, Mom screamed. She was crying now, big, ugly tears. How can you do this to us? How can you call us negligent? Because you are, I said. You chose him. You always choose him. I'm just choosing myself for once. Dad's face was red. He looked like he was going to explode. You planned this, he accused. You planned this behind our backs. No, I said. I didn't plan it. You forced me into it. I planned for the day you would finally go too far. And you did. I grabbed the handle of my suitcase again. I'm leaving, Dad. The shuttle is coming to pick me up in 20 minutes. No shuttle is coming to this house, Dad snarled. I forbid it. It's already here, I lied. I'm walking to the end of the driveway. I turned my back on them. It was the hardest thing I had ever done. Every instinct in my body told me to apologize, to shrink back, to be the good little girl. But the girl who wanted to be good was gone. She died on Friday night when they told her to lie. I started walking toward the front door. Madison, Mom wailed. Don't walk out that door. If you walk out, don't you dare come back. I didn't stop. You'll fail, Ethan yelled, his mouth full of pancake. You'll be back in a week begging for money. I reached the front door. I opened it. The cold morning air hit my face. It felt like freedom, but Dad wasn't done. I heard his heavy footsteps pounding on the floor behind me. I had one stop to make before I left town. I shouldn't have done it. It was risky, but I needed closure. I needed to sever the last tie. I drove to the high school. It was 8:15 a.m. The bell was about to ring. The parking lot was full of teenagers, laughing, talking, living their normal lives. I parked in the visitor spot. I didn't have my backpack. I just had myself. I walked toward the main entrance. People stared. They knew I had been grounded. Rumors fly fast in a small town. They probably heard I was suspended. I saw Ethan near the front steps. He was surrounded by his friends, the jocks, the popular crowd. He was laughing, acting out a scene, probably bragging about how he got me in trouble. When he saw me, his laughter died. He nudged his friend. They all turned to look. Ethan stepped forward. He had that cocky swagger that made my blood boil. Look who it is, he jeered. The exile. Did Mommy and Daddy let you out of your cage to come apologize? Phones lifted. Kids started recording. They loved drama. They wanted a fight. I stopped 10 feet away from him. I stood tall. I wasn't the shadow anymore. I'm not here to apologize, Ethan, I said. My voice carried over the crowd. Then why are you here? He sneered. To beg, to cry. He walked closer. He got right in my face. You're pathetic, Madison, you know that. You tried to ruin my life, but you only ruined your own. Dad hates you. Mom thinks you're crazy. You have nobody. He reached out and grabbed my arm. It was a power move. He wanted to show everyone he could control me. Go home, he hissed. I looked at his hand on my arm, then I looked at his face. Let go, I said. Make me. I didn't struggle. I didn't pull away. I used the move I had learned in self-defense class freshman year, the one Dad said was a waste of money. I twisted my wrist against his thumb and stepped in. His grip broke instantly. I shoved him backward. He stumbled. He tripped over his own feet and fell onto the concrete steps. Gasps rippled through the crowd. The golden boy was on his butt. Don't touch me, I said. Ever again. The doors to the school opened. Principal Davis walked out. He must have seen the commotion on the cameras. What is going on here? He boomed. Ethan scrambled up, his face red with humiliation. She pushed me. She's trespassing. She's suspended. Principal Davis looked at me. He looked at Ethan. Then he looked at the paper I was holding, the acceptance letter I had kept in my hand. I walked up to the principal. I handed him the paper. I'm not suspended, I said. I'm withdrawn. Principal Davis adjusted his glasses. He read the letter. His eyes widened. Georgetown Preparatory, he asked. He looked at me with new respect. This is incredible, Madison. He looked at the crowd of students. He looked at Ethan, who was brushing dirt off his varsity jacket. Madison has been accepted to Georgetown Prep on a full merit scholarship, Principal Davis announced. His voice was loud, authoritative. She is transferring immediately. The crowd went silent. Jaws dropped. Georgetown Prep was legendary. It was Ivy League territory. It was a level above anything in this town. You're lying, Ethan stammered. Dad said you weren't going to school. Dad doesn't control me anymore, I said. I turned to the crowd. I saw my friends. I saw the kids Ethan had bullied. I saw the teachers who had ignored me. "I'm done," I said. "I'm done with the lies, I'm done with the bullying, and I'm done with this family." I looked at Ethan one last time. "You can have the house," I said. "You can have the money, you can have their love. It's all fake anyway." "I'm sorry," Ethan muttered. It was quiet, he didn't mean it. He was just embarrassed because he was losing. "Too late," I said. I turned around. I walked back to my car. The crowd parted for me like the Red Sea. I heard whispers of woe and she's a legend. I didn't care about being a legend. I just cared about being free. I got in my car. I drove out of the school lot. I drove past the city limits sign. I cried then, not sad tears. Relief tears. I cried until I hit the highway, and then I wiped my eyes and drove toward the horizon. The drive to DC took 45 minutes, but it felt like traveling to a different planet. I crossed the bridge over the Potomac River. The monuments rose up in the distance, the Washington Monument, the Lincoln Memorial. They looked white and clean against the blue sky. I pulled up to the gates of Georgetown Preparatory Academy. It looked like a castle. Stone buildings, green ivy, wrought iron gates. The guard checked my ID. "Welcome home, Miss Cole," he said. Home. The word sounded strange. I parked in front of the girls' dormitory. It was a beautiful brick building called Founders Hall. I dragged my suitcases inside. The lobby had a chandelier. It was quiet, but a studious quiet, not an angry one. A woman met me at the front desk. "You must be Madison," she said warmly. "I'm Mrs. Higgins, the dorm mother. Ryan Mercer called ahead. We have everything ready for you." She gave me a key card. Room 304. I took the elevator up. I opened the door. It was small, just a bed, a desk, a wardrobe, and a window. But it was mine. There were fresh sheets on the bed, a welcome basket on the desk with notebooks, pens, and a cafeteria card. I sat on the bed. It was soft. For the first few weeks, I was waiting for the other shoe to drop. I jumped every time my phone rang. I flinched when people raised their voices. But the shoe didn't drop. My classes were incredibly hard. The teachers didn't care who my father was. They only cared about my ideas. I wrote essays until my fingers cramped. I read books until my eyes burned. And I loved it. I met Sienna Hart in my history class. She was brilliant and funny and didn't have a mean bone in her body. "You're the new girl," she said on my first day. "The one with the mystery transfer." "That's me," I said nervously. "Cool," she said. "Want to sit with us? We're debating the French Revolution." I sat with them. We talked about history and politics. Nobody made fun of me. Nobody interrupted me. I joined the debate team. The coach, Mr. Vance, was tough. He pushed me. "You have fire, Madison," he told me after a practice. "But you're holding back. You're afraid to be loud. Don't be, speak your truth." So I did. I poured all my anger, all my pain, all my frustration into my speeches. I won my first tournament in December. I stood on the stage, holding a trophy that was bigger than my head. I looked out at the audience. My parents weren't there. Ethan wasn't there. But Mrs. Higgins was there. Sienna was there. Ryan Mercer, the attorney, had even stopped by to watch. I realized then that family isn't about blood. It's about who shows up. That night, I lay in my dorm bed. The room was dark. I could hear the city sounds outside, sirens, traffic, life. My phone buzzed. A text from Mom. "Madison, please call us. It's Christmas soon. We miss you." I stared at the screen. I felt a pang of guilt, that old, familiar ache. But then I remembered the look on Dad's face when he drained my account. I remembered Ethan laughing when I was grounded. I didn't reply. I blocked the number. I rolled over and went to sleep. And for the first time in 17 years, I didn't dream about being trapped. I dreamed about flying. 6 years is a long time. It's enough time for a cell to regenerate. It's enough time to become a completely different person. I am 23 years old now. I live in an apartment in Navy Yard, overlooking the Anacostia River. It has floor-to-ceiling windows. It has plants that I actually keep alive. I work as a junior policy analyst for an education advocacy group. I spend my days fighting for kids who are in situations like I was, kids who are neglected, overlooked, or abused by the system. It is Saturday morning. The sun is streaming in. Atlas, my golden retriever mix, is snoring on the rug. He's a rescue. He had a bad past, too. He used to flinch when you touched him. Now he demands belly rubs. We understand each other. I pour myself a cup of coffee. I stand by the window and watch the boats on the water. My phone rings. It's a Maryland area code. I don't answer it. I never do. I know what happened to them. I hear things through the grapevine, through distant relatives I still speak to occasionally. Ethan never grew up. He flunked out of college after 1 semester. He got fired from 3 jobs. He still lives at home. He works night shifts at a warehouse now, bitter and angry, blaming the world for his failures. Mom and Dad are miserable. They blame each other. Mom says Dad was too hard on me. Dad says Mom was too soft on Ethan. They live in that big, empty house, yelling at each other, drowning in debt because they spent their retirement trying to bail Ethan out of trouble. They are trapped in the prison they built. I am free. I didn't invite them to my college graduation. I walked across the stage summa cum laude. Ryan Mercer sat in the front row. Mrs. Brooks, my old counselor, drove down to see it. I didn't ask them for money when I got my first apartment. I paid the deposit myself. I have scars. Of course I do. Sometimes when I hear a loud voice, I freeze. Sometimes I feel that old imposter syndrome, wondering if I really deserve this happiness. But then I look at my life. I look at the friends who love me for me. I look at the work I do. I look at the peace I have created. I put my coffee mug down. I clip the leash onto Atlas's collar. Ready for a walk, buddy? I ask. He wags his tail, his whole body shaking with joy. We walk out the door. I lock it behind me. It's my key, my door, my life. Cutting them off wasn't revenge. I didn't do it to hurt them. I did it to save myself. I learned the hard way that you can't fix people who don't want to be fixed. You can't explain your value to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. Some homes you are born into. They are just buildings made of wood and obligation. Others you build yourself. You build them with truth. You build them with boundaries. You build them with love that is earned, not demanded. I step out into the sunlight. The air is crisp and clean. I am Madison Cole, and I am finally truly home.